Welcome to Catholic Messenger Conversations podcast. Today's conversation with Bishop Dennis Walsh focuses on his message to the faithful, particularly priests, gathered for this year's Chrism Mass. He will explain for us the spirituality of Viva Memoria, which is a living memory of Jesus Christ. So let's get the conversation rolling, Bishop.
Great.
Okay. So who introduced the spirituality of Viva Memoria?
It was introduced by a pretty obscure Italian nun by the name of Marie Celeste Crostarosa. She lived in the early part of the 1800s, or 1700s actually, the 18th century. So she was not well known, and actually she was not beatified until just 2016. Pope Francis beatified her. So she lived in the early part of the 18th century, and probably would have been a pretty obscure life if it wasn't for St. Alphonsus. I mean, she inspired St. Alphonsus to start the Redemptorists. St. Alphonsus had the desire to start an order of priests, but primarily Alphonsus wanted to keep his order of priests serving the poor of Naples, and it was really Marie Celeste who had this vision for the congregation to go to all parts of the world and outside of Italy and to preach the gospel. So if it wasn't for St. Alphonsus, Marie Celeste probably would not have been known by the larger church, and if it wasn't for Marie Celeste, Bishop or St. Alphonsus probably never would have started the Redemptorists as an international community. So,
oh my God, that's so interesting. So when he started out in Naples, it wasn't the Redemptorists; it was just his own?
Yeah, it was the Redemptorists, but he had no desire really
to go beyond
that. He started. His encounter was with the poor sheep herders and goat herders in the hills of Naples, in an area called Scala, and felt that the church has abandoned them and was not taking spiritual care of these poor people. So that was his desire to start an order of priests just to care for them. And it was Marie Celeste who through a vision, she thought that Alphonsus should take the community to all parts of the world and proclaim the gospel.
But she had a unique aspect of that, right? I mean, what was it about her spirituality that?
Well, in her spirituality, I mean, I think St. Alphonsus became her spiritual director for a while, and eventually, I think they were introduced by a bishop named Falcoya, who was spiritual director to Alphonsus and also spiritual director to Marie Celeste Crostarosa, and they Falcoya put both of them together, but her spirituality was based on what she identified as the Viva Memoria, is that we should all be a living memory of Jesus Christ, not just knowing the story of Jesus Christ, but people should be able to see in each one of us a living memory of Jesus Christ, that whenever people encounter us, we should be transparent, and people should be able to see Christ in us,
Wow. And then why does this Viva Memoria spirituality resonate with you?
Well, I think it resonates I think Marie Celeste, I mean, she was a cloistered nun, and she saw it really in terms of a community life, that sisters should be a living memory of Jesus Christ to each other, and the laity should be a living memory of Jesus Christ. But I resonate with it so much because it's very similar to what all priests are called to, is to be configured to the person of Jesus Christ. I mean, it's what it means to be a sacrament, right? So a sacrament is a sign that points to a hidden mystery, and it gives grace instituted by Christ, and priesthood should always point to Jesus Christ. So the theology of priesthood and Marie Celeste's spirituality of a Viva Memoria, in my preparation for my homily for the Chrism Mass, was that the two go hand in hand with each other. So not only should priests be sacramentally a sign of Jesus Christ as they function in their priestly role, but just in the terms of the ordinary holiness of our lives, people should be able to see Jesus Christ in us, rather than just calling to memory the historical acts of Jesus. They should be able to see Jesus. Holiness is very attractive to people. I mean, we encounter holy people all the time,
right?
And we say, well, gosh, there's something about this person that just draws me to them, and holiness is attractive. So it's Viva Memoria is just that I have come to know the person of Jesus Christ so profoundly and so intimately that he lives in me, and people should be able to see him in me. So,
and I think when you talk about the attractiveness of holiness, it's like you notice it when it's genuine.
Correct,
It's something you can just
Sure. I mean, you
sense that.
yeah, you encounter real people who are authentically living out the gospel, and they're inspiring. And it's not just people who are living virtuous lives; it's much more profound than that. People know that the gospel resonates deeply within them.
That's really neat. So, addressing the priest specifically at the Chrism Mass, you said Viva Memoria offers a powerful lens through which to understand our own vocation. In what ways does this spirituality offer a powerful lens for understanding the priesthood?
Well, I think in terms of priesthood, part of priesthood is being configured to the cross of Jesus Christ, and priesthood is a challenging vocation, and it's a blessing to be a priest. There are great joys in priesthood, but there's also the cross. So priests should all be configured in some way to the cross, and recognizing that there is some suffering that takes place in all vocations, and priesthood is no different. So to be configured to Jesus Christ is, or to be this living memory, it should point to the cross. There should be this transparency. There should be the comforting and compassionate aspect of Jesus' ministry that people should see that in all of us, all priests in their ministry.
Talk about the cross. I don't think people maybe sometimes recognize that or understand what that means.
Sure.
About the cross of the priesthood.
Well, I think part of being a disciple of Jesus Christ, whether it's a priest or a layperson, Jesus says you must be prepared to pick up the cross and take up the cross and follow me. And I've always said that Jesus needs a better marketing manager, because the cross is not the most appealing part of the gospel message. However, it's the part that's there, and it's the part that goes with the notion that to grow in holiness, there has to be this process of dying to self, dying to selfishness, dying to that part of life that wants to live only for me. It means living for Christ and living for others. And when I choose that way of life, it's going to involve some suffering. It's going to involve rejection by the larger culture, the larger society.
Okay, I appreciate that. Lay people attending the Chrism Mass said your homily on Viva Memoria resonated with them as well. In what ways does this spirituality apply to all the faithful? You've sort of outlined that a bit, but
yeah, part of redemptorist spirituality, and I use this in all my confirmation homilies when I tell those who are being confirmed that they're all called to greatness, and people for the most part sort of go through life on autopilot. But the reality is that we're all called to greatness. I mean, we're all called, as St. Alphonsus says, every one of us is called to be a saint. And we should have that resolution every day. We should work toward that desire to be a saint, to be that living memory of Jesus Christ in the world today. Carlo Acutis, who I also talk quite a bit about during my confirmation homilies, and also he's going to be canonized just in a couple of days, actually, the 27th of April, as part of the Jubilee year. But Carlo Acutis always said, we're all born originals, and yet we all die photocopies. In that, what he means is that what God has called us to is greatness, and oftentimes we just sort of conform to what culture presents, and we don't really achieve the greatness to which each one of us has been created, to which each one of us has been called.
That's so interesting. I'm immersed in Carlo Acutis right now. I just spoke with the director, writer, producer of the documentary,
yes.
And the man who led the pilgrimage to Rome and Assisi, and just awesome. And he talked about how these kids are called to be saints, that all of us are called to be saints.
Correct, yeah.
And that them being able to even view his body over in Assisi, and to see that he was wearing clothes that they could relate with, and I mean that he was real to them, and that was really fascinating how they could relate to this other teenager who, like them, had to walk all the challenges of life they walked, but he still was able to be saint-like.
Yeah, Chris Stefanik, who's a Catholic speaker, goes around the country giving missions and talking. in the trailer for the movie for Carlo Acutis, he says, don't let the tennis shoes fool you. There's because even though he looks like an ordinary kid, he said there's nothing ordinary about him. He's an ordinary kid who lived an extraordinary life, and really that's what sainthood is all about. Is the saints were just ordinary people who lived extraordinary lives and just extraordinary virtue and extraordinary love, and all of us are capable of that, and all of us are called to that. And when we achieve it, I think looking through the lens of Marie Celeste Costa Rosa, we become a Viva Memoria. We become this living memory of Jesus Christ in the world, that people can look to us and see Jesus Christ. It's what leads people, I think, to Catholicism is witnessing the authenticity of the faith and the transformation and conversion that takes place in each person, in each Catholic that genuinely strives every day to live a life of sainthood. So.
It's hard, isn't it? Because you can be intentional or say, that's my intention, but then you have to be intentional about it.
Correct.
Right?
Intentionality is a big thing. Otherwise, and I say this quite a bit in retreats, is we all go through life in a sense when pretty much on autopilot, where one day looks like the next day, which looks like the next day, and I get up, I go to work, I come home, I get up, I go to work, I come home, and there's a lack of intentionality about how do I break that treadmill and get off that treadmill and do things that may enhance the holiness to which I'm called. So.
But also you can get caught up, I know I do, in the minutia.
Sure.
And that can just swamp you or bog you down, and then you forget who you are and whose you are, right?
What you're all about, right?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, too, this was your first Chrism Mass presiding as Bishop of the Diocese of Davenport. How would you describe that experience?
It's nerve-wracking. It's probably, out of all the liturgies the Church does, this is the one that is uniquely a diocesan liturgy. I mean, it's not something that parishioners can see at their local parish. It's only done by the bishop at the cathedral. It's only done once a year. It's the opportunity for the whole diocese, the whole local church of Davenport, to come together and celebrate liturgy together, not just in your parish, but as the local church of Davenport, which is remarkable to see all the people from all parts of the diocese coming. It's the liturgy where all the oils are blessed, and everybody's there. They'll pick up their oils afterwards. So it really is a sign of communion between the bishop and each of the parish churches, and that is lived out by this blessing of oils which are distributed to all the parish churches. It really is a humbling experience, and I said this at the end of Mass. For me to lead my brother priest in a renewal of their priestly promises. I've been a priest for 32 years, and I've always been on the other end of that. I've never been the one receiving those promises and witnessing those promises, and I've always been the one making those promises at Chrism Mass. So it was very humbling for me to be able to be there and lead my brother priest in the renewal of their priestly promises.
What was going through your mind as you asked the priests of the diocese to renew their promises? Did it just bring back memories of your own experiences?
Well, obedience is what the church asks of priests is extraordinary. It's obedience, and it's living a life of service, and sort of foregoing their own desires and their own wants, and a desire to serve the people of God and to serve the church. And that's just an extraordinary commitment, and it's a type of commitment that is not generally made in other parts of the workplace. It's a unique commitment, a unique relationship between a bishop and his priest, and it's a brotherly relationship as well as a paternal relationship, and all those are part of that relationship between bishop and priest. And to be part of that, especially being the bishop of the diocese, it really is quite humbling.
Is that hard to straddle, the idea of being a bishop? You've been a priest for 32 years, and now you're a bishop. Is it in that whole relationship building with priests?
It is. It's very difficult. it's a completely different role, and there's expectations that come with being bishop, and I think people sort of project those expectations on the office of bishop, and so it's tough to make the adjustment, because you want to be part of the fun, and oftentimes, you're the bishop, and you're not always invited, and sometimes others just want to have the freedom to be able to have fun without the boss looking around. So
yes, I know how that goes. What did you appreciate most about this year's Chrism Mass at the cathedral?
I blessing the oil of chrism was special for me, only because in my role as bishop, it's ordinations, it's the consecration of churches, the confirmation of young people. All those things are what Chrism is used for, and so as I carry out my ministry in the diocese, Chrism, I kept thinking of, well, I'm going to be consecrating a church later on this summer. Probably consecrating an altar when the St. Joan of Arc School is finished. I go every week, sometimes twice a week, confirming young people with the oil of Chrism, and hopefully we'll have an ordination to the diaconate this August. And again, all those things are part of the Chrism. So consecrating the Chrism was probably the highlight for me.
Well, and it gives you hope too, right? Because it's the church moving on, or moving
Sure,
ahead,
it's
continuing on.
the church growing, and it's very exciting,
Oh, that's great. And then I wondered, you have participated in Chrism Masses in various parts of the country and outside the country as a priest before becoming our bishop. What are some of the differences you've observed in the celebration of the?
I'd say my experience has been in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Archdiocese of New York, Toledo, and here, and they're all different. I would say the earliest Chrism Masses in Baltimore, Cardinal Keeler. I was always impressed with Cardinal Keeler. I mean, I was a religious priest, so I was not one of his priests, but in Baltimore, they always began with the sort of a day of recollection in the morning, and then the Chrism Mass in the afternoon. But Cardinal Keeler didn't know me from Adam, and yet I was always impressed with the fact that he knew every priest by name. And even though I had never met him before, I just remember crossing paths with him, and he says, "Dennis, how are you doing?" And I just that he's taken the time to get to know me, and we really, I never met him, he never met me, and I wasn't one of his priests. I was a religious priest, so I was always impressed with Cardinal Keeler for that, just his warmth, and that. New York was always much more formal. New York was a formal experience of Chrism Mass. I said I probably attended 4 Chrism Masses in New York at St. Patrick's Cathedral. Very impressive, lots and lots of priests. I remember processing in St. Patrick's Cathedral at the beginning of Mass, and Rudy Giuliani was the mayor of New York, and usually the mayor was there, the governor was there, everybody was sitting in the front pews, and all the civil officials. So I remember passing the front pew where Giuliani was sitting, and Giuliani turns to his aide next to him, and I heard him say, "They say there's a priest shortage, but you would never know that by seeing all these priests, because there's lots and lots of priests in New York, and the opening procession of priests in New York was always a long time, and they usually start at the New York hotel behind the New York Plaza Hotel, I think it is, behind the cathedral. All the priests get vested in the ballroom there, and they process to the side, and usually the cardinal is standing at the side door greeting all the priests as they process through. But I said for 4 years in St. Patrick's, I think I always had the same seat, and it was always right behind a pillar. So I spent 4 years behind a pillar, and I'm not sure how that happened that I got behind a pillar.
Penance, right?
That was my penance for 4 years. So
What? How many priests would there have been processing in?
I would say there's probably 400 or 500 priests in New York City. It just took forever, but it was very impressive to see as they would march to on the side street of the cathedral or of St. Patrick's, and going into the main doors, going into these massive doors that are often shut. But it was just very, very impressive.
Was that what part of your priesthood was that? Was that one of your first assignments?
That was my second assignment, so it was probably 94 to 98
Okay.
is when that happened. So
And then would you have experienced a Chrism Mass in Puerto Rico?
I did not. No, I was in Puerto Rico the second part of the year, so I was
Okay.
from August to December.
And then how about in Toledo? That's the diocese you
Toledo,
came
yes.
from.
I always celebrated the Chrism Mass along with the priest of Toledo, and that was
And how was that experience?
it was great. I was always a consultor or something, so usually the deans and the consultors are usually they are the closest collaborators with the bishop.
Right.
So I was always in that body. But it's always great to. Generally, in most dioceses, we didn't do it in New York, but most dioceses there's a dinner for priests afterwards. In Toledo, there was a very nice dinner after the Chrism Mass of priests and deacons, and it was just a wonderful time to get together, come together. Previous to Bishop Thomas would, when transfers are happening, usually the bishop would just sort of tap you on the shoulder and say, can you come out in the hall and talk to me? A little bit. Everybody was usually watching at dinner to see who was getting tapped to have a conversation with the bishop in the hall.
Oh,
so
wow.
That was usually.
And you're still able to eat after that.
Yeah. So usually the personnel board would meet after the dinner, so he was sort of having the conversations before the personnel board meeting. So
See, kind of feeling you out to see if you'd be willing to
That's right.
accept that assignment.
just tell you that you're probably going to move and move along. But so it was always sort of a parlor game, watching who's getting tapped and where do you think he's going to go, and all of that stuff.
Did you go to a nice restaurant, or would it be right at
No, it was usually in the gym there's a school attached to the cathedral, and we would have dinner in the gym there. Usually a nice catered meal.
Oh, that's good.
So-
Okay. And then after Mass, there were the vast glass vessels of the sacred chrism, the oil of the sick and the oil of the catechumens, has to be packaged, right? For how does that work? Did you watch any of that?
I did not. I know there's some of the people who work at the chancellery. They are the ones who sort of get all that together. During the week, I saw people getting the bottles ready, getting them labeled.
Okay.
So I think they also are the ones who probably filled all those bottles. So it's quite a few bottles, and that get distributed all across the diocese.
And does each priest pick up the bottles for their particular
I
parish?
believe they're picked up by the priest in this diocese. In Toledo, you just had to designate someone to pick them up, and
for that region
for
or
your
deanery.
parish, or
Okay.
sometimes for the whole deanery, and they would distribute them. But here, usually the priests have a day of recollection after the Chrism Mass. So after the Chrism Mass, we had a couple of talks by a priest from Knoxville, and then we had dinner, and then after that, all the bottles were ready to be picked up.
So from Knoxville, Tennessee, or
Yeah, so he's a psychologist, a priest, and talked about things that we encounter in the confessional and how to address them and so forth.
so that was very helpful. So
Yeah.
did you have any bonding time with your priests after that?
It was very busy with dinner, and then St. Ambrose, the president, Amy Novak, she sponsored the meal, and she also gave a talk to the priest regarding St. Ambrose. But so there wasn't a lot of time for personal gatherings, but it was pretty back to back, and I had it was a talk by Dr. Novak, and then 2 talks by the priest from Knoxville. We had a holy hour, and then I had a meeting after that.
Oh, you had a holy hour after the meal?
Yeah,
then?
after the talks, yes.
After the talks,
Yeah.
okay. And then now, and we're in Holy Week. Maybe we shouldn't be saying this on the air because we don't want to date it. But tell me about that. I mean, this is we're heading into the Triduum. So you've probably got a really full.
So I have all the services at the cathedral, and actually, I mean, as a priest, and it's always Thursday, Friday, and Saturday always pretty relaxing because everything kind of shuts down, and the only thing going on is the liturgy. So in a parish, it was always a great time. And there's no sacraments done on Good Friday, for example. So there's no sick calls, no hospital visits, no communion to homebound or anything like that.
Right.
So it's a pretty relaxed time. So.
Okay. So what happens on Good Friday if someone dies, or is it or needs or is dying?
You can do viaticum to the dying.
Okay.
On Good Friday, but
Okay,
yeah,
but otherwise,
there's
no.
There's no masses on Good Friday.
Right.
There's no funerals. There's no funeral mass on Good Friday, or Holy Thursday, or Saturday.
Okay.
So if somebody dies, they have to wait till Monday or Tuesday for a funeral mass.
Well, that makes sense. I suppose at that point it's not.
Yeah.
That person's not going to matter whether it's you're delaying the funeral just slightly. Well, I appreciate your speaking with us, conversing today, and we'll be looking forward to next time.
All righty. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop.
Good to see you.
Well, good to see you.